Welcome back to the First Down Football Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you see a new face here. You're probably super confused because we haven't said anything to anyone yet. But unfortunately, yesterday, James Dignan stepped down from the podcast permanently. He didn't think, he had some personal issues and we're not sure what's really going on. But we wish the best to him. We respect his decision. No disrespect. Hopefully he's doing okay. But as for the new face on the screen, we have Max from Lubes Leads. How is it going, Max?
Very excited to be here. Very excited to get this going.
How are you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing good. Very excited to talk about this week 17. It was some crazy things happened yesterday, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Yes, we have a whole lot of bullet points here to talk about. We're going to talk about Titans, the Colts, the Chargers, the Raiders, the Rams, the Cardinals, the whole Antonio Brown saga, the wild card race on both sides. And then we will get into the voice memos that you guys sent in during the week. We're going to play a couple of those, but make sure to click the link in the description on YouTube and Spotify, or go to the link in our bio on TikTok and you can send in your voice messages. But let's just get into this podcast. So let's just kick it off with the first question. Are the Titans back? And let's hear from Aaron first.
Left, honestly. I think they're most definitely a contender, and I think it's scary because as long as they take care of business in Week 18, which they play the Miami Dolphins, I think that should realistically happen. The AFC runs through Tennessee. When we see them, they're just now getting A.J. Brown back. They're going to get Derrick Henry involved. So I think that the Titans are most definitely there. I think and like I said, it's impressive for them to have that spot without Derrick Henry for over half the season.
Yeah, it's like I posted a video about it yesterday. I was saying like the Titans-Dolphins game is probably the most important game of the AFC, at least so far this year. Because like if the Titans were to win and the Chiefs were to lose, which happened, the Titans were to get that one seed. Now the Titans win, they get the one seed. That's an extra week off to get Derrick Henry back. That defense is red hot. I like how they're playing a lot. I agree, Aaron. Like, I don't know if they ever left. I think, honestly, the only time I was really questioning the Titans at full health was that loss to Houston when they got just absolutely blown out. But I honestly, I'm a believer in what they do. And, like, I'm very firm with if you can play good defense and you can run the ball in the playoffs, you have a shot to win it all. And, like, I don't know if there's a team who can do that better than the Titans, maybe the Colts, but, like, that's about it.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
As a Colts fan, we played the Titans twice in the beginning of the year when we weren't really in our good version of ourselves. So I've been wanting to play the Titans for a while. I was hoping we would draw them in the playoffs, especially when they lost to Houston and they got blown out by the Patriots, who we could handle. And so that's when I was like, man, I want to play the Titans. But I do think they're getting back to how they were earlier in the year, and they're obviously going to get Derrick Henry back. So honestly, looking at the whole AFC playoff picture, I'm not sure there's any team I want to play. Everyone is dangerous at their best. So, but we can segue that into the Colts loss against the Raiders. I obviously have a lot to say. I'll go last, but a lot of people, at least in my comments, are panicking about the Colts, saying they're fraudulent. And let's get you guys' thoughts on that.
Nah, I think the Raiders are a good team. As you just pointed out, the AFC is very deep. There's still teams fighting for that last playoff spot heading into Week 18. I think it's impressive for the Raiders to have won that game on the road. I mean, facing all the adversity that they have faced throughout the year. Obviously Henry Ruggs situation. With the John Gruden situation. So I think that says more about the Raiders than it does the Colts for them to play the kind of game that they did on the road and take down a team like the Colts. So I'm definitely not panicking with the Colts. As long as they take care of business in Week 18, they're in that sixth spot in the AFC, and they control their destiny as far as that goes on the road in the playoffs. So, and there's one thing I want to add about the Titans. If there's any year that they're going to win the Super Bowl, it's going to be this year. With that one seed, I mean, I don't know how many times you're going to be able to get that one spot with the Chiefs, with the Bengals, with the Chargers, with the Bills, with these teams, with these good teams set for the future. If there's any year that the Titans is going to win the Super Bowl, it's going to be this year. That's why I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if they're going to do it, this is their year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think it's like a panic button moment for the Colts. There's no team in the NFL that's more unpredictable than the Raiders. Like I can think back to when they played the Giants. I went to the game. They were like, I don't know, close to double-digit favorites, and they lost. Going into Dallas on Thanksgiving, close to double-digit underdogs, they won. Like there's no team that's more unpredictable, and there's no team that wins more games than they shouldn't than the Raiders. And like honestly, I think that's the sign of a good team, a team that will win games you're not necessarily supposed to, not playing down your opponent, but winning games you're not supposed to. So again, I don't think it's like a panic button moment for the Colts. I also think Wentz missing most of the week or all the week of practice played a part in it because he didn't look great. I saw your video, Will. Like he's outside of that like bomb to T.Y. Hilton that was deflected up in the air, like there was like nothing super special for him throughout the game. And at some point, if you run into a team in the playoffs that's going to stop the run, which there are a couple teams in the AFC that can do that, you're going to have to throw the ball. So I think Wentz missing practice is going to go overlooked. I think that had an impact, but like the Colts offense, they're dominant up front. And I think that's always a sign of a good team moving forward. And I wouldn't panic as a Colts fan. I definitely don't think anybody else should, but it was more of a Raiders pulling out a win that is kind of like a season saving win almost that they kind of needed than anything else, I think.
Yeah, I certainly think the Wentz missing time is a factor, and I'm not saying that's an excuse. You still got to go in there and take care of business, but it's part of why I'm there's no overreaction here. It wasn't even just him that missed practice. He wasn't even at practice all week, but a lot of our other key players, missed at least half the week. Everything was crazy with COVID. Now, once again, that's not an excuse, but and obviously every time the Colts lose, everyone's just gonna, oh, Carson Wentz is horrible. It's your fault. Now, he certainly was a factor in losing the game, but I don't think he was the biggest factor. He definitely didn't help us, and he was a little inaccurate. And I will say he was a little inaccurate in the Cardinals game too, but it went unnoticed because he came up clutch at the end, and people forgot about it. But I'm not going to say that the inaccuracy is because he wasn't at practice all week, because he has had those issues for the last couple of weeks. It just hasn't been quite as noticeable. But, as for the Raiders, you guys said that perfectly. You don't know what you're getting from – they're kind of like the Chargers where, they're going to beat teams they shouldn't beat, and they're going to lose to teams that are just not good. So, going forward, the Carson Wentz stuff, I think, could hurt us in the playoffs. I'm not saying he's a weakness, but here and there, we all know he's a little streaky and inconsistent. So if Taylor were to be stopped, which is why last week, when everyone was saying the Colts are the second best in the AFC and, they're going to the Super Bowl and stuff like that, I, as more of a pessimistic Colts fan, was like, let's pump the brakes a little bit, because I always think I kind of knew, like, Taylor hasn't been stopped really this year, besides the first 3 weeks. But, if that were to happen and we get Reich, calling some iffy play calls and Wentz, his inaccuracy comes up, then we could be in trouble. Not that we're not capable, but.
Has Reich had, I know you said it was a bad called game. Has he had any more of those games this year? Because, I haven't noticed it.
He had a lot of them during our tough stretch where we were 1-4. Even I would say the first half of the season, maybe not the first half, but the first 5-6 weeks, the Colts fans were calling for his neck. He wasn't feeding JT. The first 3 games, JT didn't have over 20 touches. And I was like, I think it's pretty obvious you got to feed Jonathan Taylor. But ever since then, he's been great. He's been called some excellent games, Patriots and Cardinals specifically. Just wasn't really there this week. I posted a video. I think you said you saw it, but I think part of why I didn't like the play calling was just because it felt like we didn't know what we wanted to do. We didn't know if we wanted to stick with the run or stick with the pass. And then when we would call passes, none of the schemes were working. Receivers were getting locked up. So I think it was just an off week, and it's nothing to really think about too much. Yeah. But let's go into, stay on the topic of the Raiders. They play the Chargers Sunday night, and basically the winner is going to be in the playoffs, and the loser is probably not going to. So who do we think will end up in the playoffs there?
Oh man, that's tough. Anybody know the status on Darren Waller? What the deal is there?
I do not. I have not heard any injury stats.
For some reason, I thought he got placed on the COVID list this week.
Yeah, he did.
He did?
Yeah.
So he should be back this week then, right?
Yeah, as long as he clears protocols, as in like he's asymptomatic, then he should be fine.
This is like one of those games where like the Raiders are hot, they're playing well, and then they just won't win. It seems like that always happens. Like I would never make a pick until the day before a game, but I'm pretty confident in the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying Chargers like all year. Like I've always had them in the playoffs. And it was, after watching the Raiders last week, handle the Colts. It's also like I think this is the it's a complete toss up because this is a game that the Chargers should win. So who knows if they will. And this is a game that people are now have high expectations for the Raiders to contend. So it's like it seems like a game where they wouldn't do that. So it's like goes two ways.
Is this a home game for the Raiders or the Chargers? Because if it's in Las Vegas, I think that would help the Raiders a lot there.
I think it is.
It is.
It is. You know what? I said in last podcast episode that Chargers would get the 7th seed, but I'm going to call it right now. I'm going to take the Raiders in an upset this week, man, because I don't think that they should even be in this situation, honestly. I talked about it earlier with the Henry Ruggs situation, the John Gruden situation. A lot of people counted this Raiders team out. And for them to get the upset this week, for them to get Darren Waller back, expected to get Darren Waller back for this game, and for it to be a home game, I think that crowd is going to be loud. I'm going to go with the upset pick and take the Raiders here in this game. I think it's a toss up, but I'm going to go with the home team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, staying on the topic of the Raiders. I mean, I was just sitting there like, I know Derek Carr had 2 picks. One of them was. Actually, both of them were just honestly impressive plays by the defense. But that dude is good. He's definitely top 10 caliber. And I didn't really realize how underrated he was because I kind of just thought, everyone knows he's top 12 at least and plays at a high level. I just made a tweet or a post and I was like, Derek Carr is good at football. And I got so many comments that were like, no, he's not. Like Baker Mayfield, I would rather have Baker on the Browns. And I'm just like, how does no one else see? Like that dude is a damn good football player.
He is. He's literally doing all this without 2 to 3 top targets, almost or more, over half the year. I don't know. I think also one thing I've noticed, 2 things actually. First of all, I want to say in relation to the Chargers-Raiders game, the one thing the Chargers have not done well all year is stop the run, and they were like ridiculously good against the run against Denver. And I'm pretty sure Denver was missing a couple players on the line because they had a huge COVID reserve list this week. But I mean, if the Chargers can do that, that's like been their biggest weak spot. And if they can do that, I think they will have a good shot. Also, something interesting to notice, I've noticed that Raiders fans, they travel really well. Like 2 games I've been at where the Raiders have been on the road, they travel really well. But it's not necessarily the same when teams go to Vegas. There are always fans from other teams who are going to Vegas, I don't know, for vacation or what, but it's never like a full home crowd in Vegas. It's same thing with Dallas too, if you've ever noticed. There are always a lot of away team fans when the Cowboys play at home. There's something like I don't know if the home field advantage obviously will help them, but I don't know if it'll be like the thing that pushes them over the top.
Yeah, I was at the Colts game, and man, there were so many Raiders fans there, and
it's crazy.
You get those moments where our Colts offense is huddling and they're doing this. They want quiet down, and you just hear it get louder because there's so many Raiders fans. But so let's segue this. We'll go back to the NFC side, and the Cardinals beating the Cowboys. So what do we take away from this? Or do we gain any trust back from the Cardinals or what?
I have a video recorded I'm posting today about this. I think the Cardinals played a good game. Kyler did everything he needed to. Chase Edmonds had a good game. Like they moved the ball like they should. But I think the formula for beating Dallas has kind of been exposed. You look at the last games defensively, they played bad or lost. It was Kansas City, it was Vegas, and it was Cardinals, teams that are going to stretch them vertically. I know Trayvon Diggs is good. I don't know. People have their different opinions on him. I think he's good. But they're susceptible to big plays. They're undisciplined. They commit a lot of pass interferences. They had multiple third down pass interferences against Arizona this past week that kept drives alive. And when the Cowboys are on offense, teams that have been able to get Dak kind of off of his mark, their offense didn't look good against New Orleans, even though they won. Didn't look good against the Giants, even though they won. Arizona did a good job of getting him off his mark. Kansas City did a good job of moving him around. He makes plays, but he also makes mistakes. And I think it's gotten to a point where Dak and the Cowboys are kind of beating themselves. As you put pressure on these good teams, and I think the elite teams will rise to it and they won't beat themselves. But the Cowboys have yet to show, especially against a good team, that they can handle that pressure, that Dak can step up and make big throws down the field, that their defense can make plays down the field consistently. But I think, honestly, the big takeaway for me is that if anybody's going to beat the Cowboys, they're going to beat themselves. They're going to force the Cowboys to beat themselves because there's so much talent on that roster. Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, not for sure.
Go ahead.
Gotcha. Not for sure. I agree with basically everything you just said. I don't think I'm worried about either of these two teams. I think both of these teams are capable of beating just about any team in the NFC. Cardinals, I'm not too worried about it either. Obviously they're now 4-5 last 9, and they started off 7-0. I think this was a bigger win for Arizona, and I think that game meant a little bit more to Arizona than it did Dallas, just to get a little bit on track heading into the playoffs for Arizona, because obviously they weren't looking good these past 2 weeks. So I think that win, getting that win, close win on the road in Dallas, a lot more for Arizona than it did for Dallas in that game yesterday.
Yeah, I think I don't mean to discredit Arizona or anything. That was a great performance by them, well-deserved win. Although I guess there was a lot of stuff going on with the referees at the end of the game that we're hearing about. But I think it was more of, the Cardinals are not a horrible team, but they've been playing bad football the last 3 weeks. And it was kind of I picked the Cardinals this week, and I knew Dallas is a better team. I think Dallas is a better team overall, but I'm I don't think the Cardinals are going to lose a 4th game in a row. They're not that bad. I think it was more of something like that, but I really don't think it helps me gain too much trust for the Cardinals in the playoffs still, because I try not to buy into recency bias too much. And I can't just forget that the Cardinals are 3-5 in their last 8 weeks, 0-3 in their last 3 weeks before this game. So I still have that, outweighing this good win. But the way it's set up right now, if I'm correct, we're going to be seeing a Cowboys Cardinals rematch in Wildcard weekend, which I would be looking forward to.
Yeah,
that'd be a good game.
I wonder if part of the thing that's been on my mind with the Cardinals ever since they started playing poorly is it's all been post J.J. Watt injury. I think to an extent they're feeling, and even with DeAndre Hopkins now too, because he's done for the year, right?
I think there's a chance he can return for the playoffs. As far as yeah.
But even then, it's a little bit of culture shock. I think their defense the first 7 weeks with Watt was suffocating. Nobody could do anything. Definitely. And even offensively, Hopkins wasn't the key cog that he was last year, but he was still very important. And even then, I think they're just trying to adapt to not their 2 best players. I think Kyler's more important than DeAndre Hopkins is, but they're trying to adapt to not having some of their best players. And I think that's played a huge part in it. And they you're right. It's not like they're a bad team at all. Well, they just have not been playing good football.
For sure. And then even that, adapting without DeAndre Hopkins has been a huge problem too, because Kyler Murray missed 4 or 5 weeks in the middle of the season. So, he's just now getting back in the offense himself. So
that's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point though about, I think what you're trying to say is they're trying to adjust to not having their stars rather than, stay the same and just say, next man up. But respect to Antoine Wesley, that dude made a few good catches against the Cowboys.
He is good.
He did it against the Colts too.
Yeah.
So he's stepped up, but we'll have to see if they can figure it out come playoff time. But I want to talk about the Rams because the Rams are a tough team to evaluate for me. I mean, they were my Super Bowl team coming into the season. And after they went through their tough phase, and then they got back hot again. But it seems to me like they're not playing good football. It's cooled off a little bit. And obviously, we've seen from Stafford, you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, he'll just have just a few bad plays here and there. I love Stafford as a quarterback, but it's in my opinion, that's not a team that I can trust to be a Super Bowl contender. And I generally just don't think they have that big of a shot because I don't think they're, it's an eye test. I'm watching them play these games. I'm like, this team is not going all the way. What do you guys think?
I think I'm going to agree with you. I think that the NFC is very top heavy. So I wouldn't be surprised if, Green Bay or Tampa Bay, with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers at quarterback for those teams. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if those teams make it. But I think the Rams are going to be a tough team to beat come playoff time, especially if you're going to have to be the team and traveling on the road. The offense is improved, but I think that the biggest part is their defense. Because you can only double team so many guys. You put two men on Aaron Donald, that means you're one-on-one on the outside with Leonard Floyd, with Von Miller. And then obviously you have Jalen Ramsey in the secondary. I think that the Rams are one of the most complete teams in football. And although they have not looked too great these past few weeks, almost dropped the game. They didn't look too impressive against the Vikings. And then obviously they almost dropped the game to a very beaten up Ravens team. I think the Rams will be just fine. And I think that they are, like I said, one of the best teams in football and one of the most complete teams as well.
Yeah. I do want to give a little bit of credit to the Ravens, though, because they have looked good with Tyler Huntley. And, a small part of me wants to see what they'll do if they somehow do make the playoffs, because I do think they're still a good team. They almost beat Green Bay with Huntley. It's not necessarily a bad team that the Rams are playing, but I have noticed they play down to their opponents a little bit and they play up to the better opponents. And, obviously you're only going to play good opponents in the playoffs. But part of my offseason thoughts on the Rams was that it wasn't going to be the defense that would keep them in games anymore, because I think losing John Johnson was the biggest thing. That was kind of their defensive leader in the secondary. I figure it's going to be their offense that's going to have to win them games. And with the way Stafford's playing, it's hard to completely trust their offense. I think they're a good team, but I could not trust myself picking them over, definitely not over Green Bay. Even to an extent, Dallas, I would love to see them play Dallas in the playoffs. I think that'd be an awesome game. But I don't know. It's really, really difficult to pick against a team that is so good and so complete. But at the end of the day, a lot of wins and losses hinge on your quarterback. And if Stafford plays like that, it's going to be tough for them to win games against really good teams.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they do play. I mean, all their games are good games, except really earlier in the year when they blew out the Bucks and when they got blown out by the Titans. But right now they're like the 3 seed, so they will be as it sits right now. They're getting the Niners week 1, which is a tough matchup. Who are actually playing them this week? So, but you're gonna have to beat probably 2 of those top dogs in the Cowboys, the Bucks, and the Packers. And I'm not saying they're not capable. I wouldn't be surprised that maybe an upset, but I just think I'm not ruling them out of the Super Bowl. That is not something that I would predict at all.
Yeah, it's a super, super deep NFC, and I know we'll talk about the wild card teams later, but I genuinely can see any team in the NFC beating another team. It's just so deep. I wouldn't be surprised if any team.
Let's segue that into that then. We'll come back to the Bucks and the AB situation towards the end, but so obviously the wild card race for the NFC right now is pretty ridiculous. It sits at the Niners are 6, the Eagles are 7, and the Saints are 8. They're all 3 are. If the Saints win, then they need a Niners loss to get in. There's a bunch of different scenarios. Basically, the 49ers, the 49ers have to beat the Rams. Otherwise, they're going to need the Falcons to beat the Saints. But who do we think is getting in? And then I guess after we decide that, I want to talk about, which of those teams can get some wins in the playoffs?
I don't know.
Tough.
It is. I like the Rams still have something to play for. Like they didn't clinch their division yet, correct?
The Rams? Yeah.
Yeah, so like they're going to be playing like their players for the whole game against the 49ers. And at that point, like it's just divisional games are always really tough to pick, especially later on in the year. But like even if the 49ers lost that game, it would not surprise me in the slightest bit if the Falcons beat the Saints. They did it already this year, right? The Falcons beat the Saints already this year, right? That would not surprise me. But if that's the case, the off chance 49ers win, I would say the 49ers will get in over the Saints. I definitely think the 49ers, actually, I can't say definitely. I think they are a better team than the Saints because the Saints can.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
But I don't know. It's really, really tough to pick because I like what the Saints do on defense a lot. And I think they can keep their offense in any game against. I mean, we saw with the Bucs. Like they can keep them in any game.
For sure. I think the Niners sneak in. I think they take care of business and beat Los Angeles in Week 18. At least I hope so. Just because I don't think the Saints deserve a spot in the playoffs. I know their defense is great, and obviously if Jameis Winston was healthy, I think would be in a much better position than they are right now. But with the way their offense has looked, I mean, before yesterday's game, they didn't score a touchdown in 2 straight games. So, I mean, as good as their defense is, if your team can't even put up a touchdown against one of the better defenses, because you're going to be playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Los Angeles Rams, Green Bay, you're going to be playing one of those teams if you sneak into the playoffs. So I think that the Niners have a better shot of upsetting one of those top-heavy NFC teams, whereas the Saints, I think they would most likely get embarrassed. So I think Niners sneak in and take that spot.
Yeah, I'm rooting for that too. I do think it's more fun TV to watch the 49ers because I do think they can make some noise in the playoffs, especially with I don't know what we'll end up seeing from Lance, but as for like who can get some wins, I definitely think the 49ers can. I don't think the Saints are a good football team. They got embarrassed by the Dolphins, who got embarrassed by the Titans. It's not really a team I want to watch in the playoffs. I do agree that their defense can make it, like not a complete blowout at times, but and then the Eagles, they're playing good football right now. But I mean, I think it's probably matchup dependent, whether the Eagles get to 6 or the 7, who's the 2 or 3. But if they run into like the Bucs, I think they're screwed. I mean, their whole team is, they have a super good run game. That's what they do to succeed. You're not going to be able to do that against the Buccaneers. So I mean. The only really team I think I could see the Eagles maybe taking down is the Cowboys, and I'm not saying that they're on the same tier. I'm just saying divisional opponents, it's always tough.
I honestly think the Eagles can beat any team except for the Packers. I think obviously they're good up front offensively. Defensively, they're good up front. Their defense is good. They're good in the red zone too. I think that goes unnoticed again. And against teams like obviously Dallas, if they were to play a divisional opponent, I think that would be like the biggest factor in them upsetting them. Like they've seen them so much already. But when you play teams like the Rams, the Bucs, who are going to score points, it's so important to hold them to field goals in the red zone instead of touchdowns. The Eagles are good at that. I think honestly they can control the game. If the Eagles are ever in a game where they're down multiple possessions and they have to throw the ball to get back in the game, like I have no confidence in them whatsoever. But if they can keep the game close with the team, I think they could beat anybody, except for the Packers. I don't think they can beat the Packers, but anybody else. I'm confident in what the Eagles do. As much as I don't like them, I'm confident in what they do.
For sure. I think I agree with you, Will. I don't see the Eagles upsetting any of those top-heavy teams unless it's the Cowboys for the same reason, divisional opponent. But I will agree with you as well, Max. I think that they can keep games close, and I think the only team that I don't see them beating is Green Bay and Lambeau. But I think that they would be able to play a competitive game against LA and Tampa Bay right now as well.
Especially with all the Antonio Brown stuff. Their whole not even just Antonio Brown, their whole offense, but It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, let's go to Antonio Brown. I mean, you can't not talk about Antonio Brown after this week. Whoever wants to lead off with some Antonio Brown thoughts.
When I turned on my computer this morning and I was looking at it, seeing what they were saying on like Good Morning Football and stuff like that, they made it sound like he was injured. Well, obviously he's been injured, but he was injured and he deemed himself not healthy enough to go back into the game when the coaching staff told him to go back into the game. So if I'm in that situation and I have all these incentives in front of me, like I obviously will do everything in my power to go back in the game and get them. So that makes me think whether it's like physically, everybody's talked about stuff mentally with Antonio Brown, something was genuinely prohibiting him from being ready to go back in the game. I don't know what it was. I don't think this is like, obviously it was a drama thing because he made it like a drama thing, but I don't think this was this like, oh, like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, this is ridiculous. I genuinely think something was wrong, whether it was physically or mentally. And it sounded like they literally cut him on the sideline. Like, it sounded like they literally said, you're not a Buccaneer on the sideline. And he knew that going off the field.
Yeah. Very interesting situation. You know, I heard the same. Because with the incentives on the line, if I'm Antonio Brown and Bruce Arians is telling me to go out there, and I'm Antonio Brown, knowing my incentives, I'm maybe I think 11 receptions away from 300,000, 50 receiving away. So, I mean, he was literally right there, a milestone away from making $1 million. Regardless, I think that I agree with that. Like, I think that was the case, you know, but at the same time, if Antonio Brown's like, okay, coach, like I can't go in, I'm not healthy enough. If that's the case, why would they cut him on the sideline? So like that story doesn't fully add up to me as well. So, yeah, it's just tough. Interesting situation. I think AB added the drama to it, obviously, you know, off the path and walking off the way he did. I don't think many players at all do it there, but yeah, I don't know what to believe, honestly.
I think there's definitely a lot of gray area. But, you know, we're not in the locker room and stuff. But as for the, you know, AB saying I was injured and they were trying to make me play, I think, first of all, a coach is not going to make an injured player play. But if he was cleared by doctors and it was just, you know, AB saying I'm not okay, then it's probably like, you know, the coaches probably viewed him as, you know, being a little soft. And I think if the story is even true, I mean, who knows if AB is just tripping, but if that story is true, what I think maybe happened is AB was like, I can't play. And, you know, the coaches maybe angrily were just like, you know what, fine, get out of here. Like, we don't need you. And AB is probably like, you know, his dramatic self is like, you know what, I will get out of here. I'm done. Let me take my stuff off and get out of here. That's what I think might have happened. But how do you think? How do you guys think?
I will say it's interesting. He went to social media right afterwards and dropped, you know, the song. I don't know if you guys saw that. It was almost like he knew that there was going to be some kind of publicity going on yesterday. Because, I mean, he was prepared, you know.
Did you know his Snapchat this morning too?
No, I didn't see. What was up with his Snapchat?
Oh my gosh, he was just like posting pictures from my guess, because he didn't fly home with them, the flight down to, like, he's just like, I don't know if you guys can see it. He's just like posting this, like these like random pictures, and then he posted this. I think it's Devin White. Just like, this is obviously like on the flight down to the game. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, he's loving just the publicity, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more you can ask for. Having one of the best quarterbacks in the league, being damn near the wide receiver one on your team, having a great chance at going to the Super Bowl. But, you know, I think maybe he just like, you know what, I'd rather have a lot of attention than be having fun playing football and contending for a ring.
Now, I do have a question for the both of you guys. Do you guys think Antonio Brown will find himself on another team, or is this the last time we see Brown on an NFL roster?
He's done. I don't see
he's done. listen, because we did say, I don't know if you guys remember this, 2 years ago, everyone was saying the same thing with the Raiders situation. Never going to see him play again. Obviously we seen him come and join Tampa Bay. So I think it's interesting. No, I mean, I think everyone's going to say no for now, but I think a team could take a stab on him and take a chance on Antonio Brown. I don't know.
I think a team will. I
agree.
think this is obviously much more severe than like the Josh Gordon situation, but Josh Gordon got chance after chance after chance, and he's on an NFL roster right now. Like, and obviously Josh Gordon was good, but Antonio Brown was better for a longer time. And he was good on Tampa Bay. Like, it just makes me think like somebody will probably take a chance.
All right, so we're going to segue this into our voice messages segment where, if you guys are listening, we have the link in the bio or the link in the description for the on YouTube and on Spotify. Go send in some voice messages. We're going to play 3 right now and give our takes on them. You guys can send in hot takes, questions, whatever. So we are going to talk about 3 of the voice messages right now, and we will start it off with a question about the Vikings' future from Brian Vargo.
Hey, what's going on for Scout Football Podcast? I just had a quick question. So, if the Vikings move on from Mike Zimmer, which they definitely should, do you give Kirk Cousins another year and play out his contract and see what happens? Or if you're the new management or head coach over there, do you move on from Kirk Cousins? Do you go Kellen Mond? Do you draft someone now? What do you think the Vikings quarterback situation will look like in a year or two?
Definitely start that off with the Vikings fan here.
Yeah. Since Kirk Cousins is under contract for another year, I think the obvious answer is play out his contract. There's really no way of getting out of that contract unless we were to trade for, another team picking up his contract. But I mean, no team's going to pick up Kirk Cousins making 30 million with 1 year left on the deal. Just not very realistic to happen. After that year, it's going to get interesting because, we've yet to see the new head coach of our franchise, whether they're going to like Kirk Cousins, whether they're not going to like him. Kellen Mond isn't quite ready to start, or we would have seen him play last night, I feel like. So I think the right answer here is let Kirk Cousins play out that last year on his deal. And if management is content with his play, we obviously give him another deal, but if not, we move on at that point and draft somebody, or if Kellen Mond is ready at that point, if he's the future, he takes over at that point.
Will, you want to go?
Yeah, I had changed my opinion on Kirk Cousins so many times. I think he puts up the great stats. You can't say he doesn't produce. But I think he's just one of those guys that I look at and I'm like, I don't know if this guy is going to be able to get us a Super Bowl. Now, like what Aaron said, is, keep him for another year. I think there's going to be a lot of other aspects that go into it, whether, new coaching, how's the team looking roster-wise in a year from now. But, I mean, if I was a GM, it's one of the hardest questions out there because, in my opinion, it's similar to now. Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz and guys like that in that tier, Ryan Tannehill. But I think I look at him somewhat of the same way, just as like I don't know if he is the guy to bring us a Super Bowl. So it's tough for me.
I have like an off-season quarterback vision. So bear with me here. If the Packers win the Super Bowl this year, I think Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams both stay in Green Bay. I don't think they leave if they win the Super Bowl, it's tough, but that's what I said this offseason. I'm like, it's really easy to say Rodgers done with Green Bay, but they're going to be good. And if they win the Super Bowl, like, I don't know how you can leave. I really don't. I think that could happen. If that happens, I could see the quarterback needy team like the Steelers, or even the Browns maybe, who will have their top candidate off the market, which is Rodgers, trading for Kirk Cousins. I could see it, especially a team like the Steelers who are built to win now. I could see that trade happening and they can restructure the contract, whatever. They have a lot of money in Pittsburgh to do that type of stuff. But internally in the Vikings, personally, I am not the biggest Kellen Mond believer. I kind of said that coming out of this year's draft class. I think they reached a little bit for the pick. But if they believe in Kellen Mond, I do think it is time to just they've been grooming him for a year. Even if they groom him for part of the season, kind of like what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, and then just give him free reins as time goes on, I could see it. But I don't think the Vikings are going to find another answer like externally. I think it's got to be Cousins or it's got to be Mond, because I don't think there's like a sure thing quarterback coming out of this year's draft. And I think the Vikings would be fools to use their first round pick on him. So I think it has to be Cousins or it has to be Mond. But I could definitely see a quarterback needy team like the Steelers, Browns probably. I don't know what direction the Seahawks are headed in, but I don't think Russ is going to be there next year. The Seahawks believe they can win now and it's not a rebuild time. Maybe they go for, I don't know. Russ is gone, I think. But I think a quarterback needy team will most definitely inquire about Cousins.
I like that. I would like to see Cousins in the new situation. Not that his situation's bad, but it would just be fun to watch him. I'd be looking forward to see how good the Steelers could be with an upgrade at QB.
Yeah. And I honestly think the Vikings have a good enough roster where they are an elite quarterback away from being a Super Bowl caliber team. Like, their defense is solid. They obviously have the pieces out wide. They have Dalvin Cook. Their line has played well from what I've seen. They have what they need, I think. It's just, it seems like at least just that one piece. Same with the Browns. It's like that one piece. It's the quarterback. You need somebody to make plays when nobody else can. And Kirk Cousins, unfortunately, hasn't been that guy.
Okay, so we haven't talked about Joe Burrow or the Bengals, and that is somebody named Jake Burt sent in a voice memo regarding Joe Burrow, so we'll play it out.
Do you think currently Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in the AFC North? And if so, do you think he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now?
Wants to lead off with the Joe Burrow talk.
I mean, I think the obvious, not obvious, but like the answer that makes sense to both those questions is yes, because we haven't seen a ton from Lamar Jackson this year because he's been hurt and because he's been so inconsistent. So AFC North, I would say yes. And I would find it hard to find 10 quarterbacks I'd rather have than Joe Burrow right now. I don't know if you could throw him in like the top 5 discussion. I think that'd be a bit more difficult, but I would not be able to pick 10 quarterbacks over him. There's no way.
I think I agree on both of those. Yeah, I mean, I definitely can't quarterbacks better than Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow versus Lamar is kind of an interesting discussion, but like you said, right now it's definitely Joe Burrow. So I think I agree on both of those takes right there.
Yeah, I think Rodgers, Brady, they're in their own tier. I think the tiers are tough too, but I think the next kind of tier for me is Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, Kyler Murray. And I would put Stafford up there as of now. But I think the next tier, guys, is Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and probably Russell Wilson too. Russell Wilson's kind of tough to evaluate, but I think Burrow's in there with them. I think there is only surefire 7 quarterbacks better than him. I think you can really put him anywhere from 8 to 10.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't even, like, there was a point where you could probably make the argument that he was playing better than Kyler recently, at least. But yeah, it would be so hard for me to put him over, like, even if like Josh Allen and Stafford are inconsistent, like those guys, Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady's been good all year. Like, I couldn't do it. There's no way.
So let's get into our last voice message. It is from the Titans Walter Picks account from TikTok regarding a prediction for next season.
Hey man, big fan. My hot take is that next year Justin Herbert wins MVP, and I will bet the Chargers to win the Super Bowl whenever the odds come out. Put it in the bank.
Yeah. I mean, obviously coming into this year, Herbert was a huge MVP favorite. And I don't think he is, really in the MVP conversation right now, but he has had a great year. Definitely I would say he's almost up to. Sorry, my computer crashed. I would say he's almost up to pretty much what we expected from him. And I think the Chargers, I don't know, they're a very inconsistent team, but they certainly have a bright future. I remember posting something on TikTok earlier in the season, like week 3, week 4. I said, if you couldn't be a fan of your team, who would you be a fan of? And, I would probably base that off of, who's going to be good for the next, few years, the next decade. And a lot of the popular answers were, I would say most of the answers were Bills and Chargers, because the Chargers certainly do have a bright future. Maybe a little early. I don't know if I would put money on Chargers next year, but I'm not saying they don't have a shot.
First off, I want to say I love the confidence from Titans Walter picks there, but I think MVP for Justin Herbert is definitely more realistic rather than the Chargers winning the Super Bowl. I think the defense has a little bit of work to be done for them to get to that point to make the Super Bowl. But I mean, Justin Herbert, just yesterday he passed up Phillip Rivers in his second year for most passing touchdowns in a single season, set the franchise record. I mean, if he improves just from this year alone and throws 40 touchdown passes next year, and the Chargers, win a couple more games than they do this year, then I mean, I can 100% winning the MVP. So I like that prediction. But as far as them going and winning the Super Bowl, I would not bet on that. I would not bet on that at all.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do this offseason. Obviously, offensively, they're good. They're young. Like, Rashawn Slater is really good. I'm a huge fan of Corey Linsley, their center. I think he's really good. Like, their offense is easily the better unit of the two. I honestly think they're an interior anchor defensively away from being an elite defense. You got guys like Derwin James. Their secondary is very good. It's just getting the other offense behind the chains and putting them in difficult situations that's going to help their defense. And yesterday was the only time I've seen it all year. So it's going to Super Bowl will depend on what they do this offseason. But MVP, I think, is very realistic. I mean, Brandon Staley, the Chargers coach, he actually coached at the college I go to, and I'm a student assistant on the football team there. So, like, I've noticed some of the philosophy that we carry here go over there, and it's a complete belief in your best player and your best unit to, like, a ridiculous extent. We saw it in the Chiefs game. I don't know how many fourth downs they went to, but he truly believed, because Justin Herbert's best player on their team, best player on the field, whatever, that they're just going to give him every chance that they get. And obviously that'll contribute to, like, more stats, better performances, whatever. But he actually talked about it after the game. It's going to contribute to, like, the likability of a team too. And I know the MVP is like not a statistical, like a very well thought out voting process as compared to, like, the Pro Bowl or something. But that bias could easily seep into whoever's voting for MVP. If it's a likable team, if it's an enjoyable team to watch, like, of course that's going to seep in. Like, Aaron Rodgers, consensus MVP right now, statistically not having a better year than Brady, really. Like, there are arguments you could make statistically for other guys, but because Rodgers is so good, because he's so dominant, because he's so efficient, like, he's going to win it. So I think MVP is, like, super, super realistic. And honestly, if I were to put something down on an offseason MVP favorite, I would probably do Herbert, unless Aaron Rodgers was back in Green Bay.
I think it's certainly going to be when MVP odds come out. I think Herbert's going to be up there. I think he's going to have a lot of, just like he did last year. I think he's going to have a lot of people that are excited to see him come out and expect him to be playing at that level. Especially if you think the Chargers are going to be a better team than this year. He sounds very confident in his Chargers prediction, so I'm not going to stop him, because it's not like they don't have a shot. They certainly do. But I do think it's, obviously there are a few things they're going to have to tweak in the offseason, specifically the run defense. And I know you said that, they took care of Denver in the run defense aspect, but that's what I was saying. I would love to run into the Chargers as a Colts fan, now that I think of it, second round, because they could not stop Jonathan Taylor. They're gonna, that would be
Have a bunch of trouble.
Unless they had some, like, groundbreaking breakthrough yesterday, there in terms of run defense, they can't beat the Colts. I would even go so far as say they can't beat the Patriots. like teams that are very dependent on the run. Like I don't think they have a chance.
It won't stop Derrick Henry either.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Now, one last thing before we end this podcast episode, I want to ask my guy Matt. Matt, sorry about that. What is your Super Bowl prediction? Because we talked about it in the first podcast episode. I'm sure people want to hear. What is your Super Bowl prediction if you had to predict right now?
So my preseason prediction was Packers over Chiefs. For pride purposes, I kind of want to stick to it, but I will say that if the Titans get the number 1 seed, they have this extra week for Derrick Henry, I'm going to pick the Titans to make it from the AFC. I still think the Packers are going to win it. I had a feeling the Aaron Rodgers revenge tour would be very real this year. So I picked them this offseason. I think they still will. They're the most complete team in the NFL. They're really the only team in the NFL that we're confident is like consistently dominant. So I will pick the Packers, but I think right now I'll say Packers Chiefs, but I do think if Derrick Henry's back, they get that extra week, it's going to be tough to beat the Titans for sure.
I like it.
What did you guys say for your picks?
Heading into the season, I had Chiefs Rams, and then I talked about the possibilities of multiple teams, making it out from the NFC. I don't see any other team other than the Chiefs making it out of the AFC. But like I mentioned earlier in this episode, and you just said it yourself, if there's any time the Titans are going to go to the Super Bowl and make it over that hump, it's going to be this year. Getting Derrick Henry back healthy, having that 1 seed. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna bet against the Chiefs. So the Chiefs from the AFC, and then from the NFC, my preseason prediction was the Rams. So I just went ahead and stuck with that. But I can see almost any team from the NFC making it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said Rams preseason, and I kind of said earlier why I can't stick with it. And I'm rolling with the Packers just because I do think they're the best team in the league. I think it's about time they get over this NFC Championship hump. And then the AFC, I think I had the Chiefs, and I also do love the point that you made about the Titans, because that's a team that beat the Rams earlier in the season, beat the Bills, beat the Chiefs, beat the Colts twice. Like, they have an insanely good resume. They can hang in there with anyone. So if they can get back to that form, that's going to be a dangerous team. But I also think, there's so many teams in the AFC. The Bills, the Bengals, the Colts, Patriots even. I think all these teams, if the NFL playoffs become March Madness-esque, I could see any of those teams in there. But
I could see
I wouldn't be the boring pick, but it's hard not to go with the Chiefs right now.
Yeah, I do genuinely think, especially on the NFC side, there will be an upset wildcard weekend, 100%.
100%. I would have to agree with that. I'd have to agree with that.
We'll know when those matchups come out, but
for sure.
Yeah, if the Cardinals can get their stuff together, and if the Niners can get back to being hot, those are definitely 2 upset teams right there that could make an upset.
don't sleep on the Eagles, though. I'm telling you guys, it's a good team.
Eagles.
Okay, so we can wrap up the podcast here. All of our TikTok ats will be on the screen if you're watching on YouTube when we get this out later. Make sure to go check us out on TikTok if you haven't. Remember to send in some voice memos. We're going to be doing, if we get more voice memos next week, maybe we'll up it to, maybe 5 or 6. Remember, the timestamps are in the description, but thank you guys for listening. Hopefully we can keep going up from here. We wish the best for James, but we're going up. We're going up without him. So